Today's video, going to be putting this Flight Fab radius arms on this Ram 2500. It's on bags, and we already got the Flight Fabrications brackets on installed. So since it has the stock radius arms, what we're going to do is put in these adjustables, since they have adjustment with the rod end, and we're going to try to straighten that out. And so the weight of the body of the truck is on these two brackets right here. Got to do this together because I got to adjust the radius arms together, and I can't adjust one side without the other because that's in a fixed state. You can't rotate it because it's already bolted up. Since that side is unbolted already, I got to unbolt the other side at the same time so I can rotate the axle to clock it the way I need to, so where when it's aired up, it's actually, the bag is straight. Let's go ahead and take off the stock side. Axle on both sides are supported on jacks. So now we can go ahead and take off this radius arm, the stock one, and we can start clocking our axle. I have an impact. I did the other side with the breaker bar. For the sake of the video though, I'm just going to use an impact, but it is possible with this. I had to use a jack to push leverage on it, and then it just took me a few times to do that, resetting the socket to break the bolt's torque. There's a nut on the back side. You don't have to hold it. Once it spins far enough, it'll hit this radius arm. It'll hold itself, and then you can just focus on the bolt. There you go. We're going to leave that one in right now because that bolt's what's holding the front end of it up. We're going to go ahead and take off the rear. 27mm. The back side has the same tab to prevent it from spinning. And there you go. Your stock arm is off. But now the axle has ability to either slide back or forward. The pivot point would be the airbags mount. So this top mount is mounted to the body, the bottom is to the axle. So now you can either move the axle back and forth, with the top being the pivot point, and then you also, the axle itself can be clocked. Forward, rotating forward or aft, depending on what you need. He gave me the specs of the upper control arm, or the upper radius arms are going to be 29 3/4 eye hole to eye hole center, and the bottoms 35.5 eye hole to eye hole center. So now we're going to throw the drop down bracket on this passenger side. We're going to go ahead and put the top sleeve on the mount. Passenger side is going to have where this brace is on the back side, and you want your letters right here facing outboard, of course, hence why you're spending money for it. But now your bracket is pivoting on both ends. So now with your pivot point right here, you can see that the aft bolt is lined up. And as you can see, this is just an open gap. So if we just put the bolt in and tying it down, this is going to bend inboard. So what they do is they give you an interior bushing in the kit. You got to slide it up there. I'll line it up right now when I put it in, but now when you put the bolt in and torque it down, the frame is going to get compressed as far as this bushing will go, and now you can torque it down without worrying about bending the brackets. So now that it's kind of protruding, I'm gonna have to use the impact just to kind of slowly. You don't want to do it all the time, but you can't just tap it in because it's too tight of a clearance. So you're gonna use the impact to kind of screw it in, or if you have a ratchet. And if it didn't say, it's a 1 1/16 the nut, and then 28 on the bolt head. Now we can go ahead and put the top mount. We got to install one backer right here. Even though we're not taking off the bolts, we are taking off the nuts. It's safe practice to have jack under the jack mount, just in case. So now we're going to go ahead and take off the nuts. 24mm. Bolt head. The passenger side is easy compared to the driver's side. The driver's side has the transaxle. Now with the bracket, I'll just go ahead and slide it back. And throw the nut on. Now that we got the bracket here, we can go ahead and throw the top bolt in. We're not going to torque them down until all these slots have their bolts in there, so we know that everything's going to fit. Now we're going to go ahead and set up the radius arms to their specific length, and then once we put everything in, then we'll go ahead and torque everything down. And here are your arms with their rod ends. These are your uppers, these are your lowers. The company says for the uppers, from eye hole to eye hole center, 29 3/4. And the bottoms are 35 1/2. Okay, now we have the driver's side drop bracket and the passenger side drop bracket loosely installed with the 4 transmission bolts and the 2 mount bolts. Everything's loosely installed. And now we have all 4 arms adjusted to length. That's on both sides for those also. And since nothing is mounted to the axle minus everything up here, now we can go ahead and move the axle need be and clock it to where we need to line up the holes. And as you can see, lifting the arm up, we are pretty far off. It's about an inch or so. For now, I'm going to go ahead and just pull the axle forward just a bit and line up that hole. So now, the bottom of the airbag bracket, I ratchet strap it to the body, and that should be able to let me pull the axle forward, so then I can line up the hole. Sit rep, the driver's side upper is installed. So now our axle is hinged at the top because both those uppers are installed. Now we just got to get the lower clocked. From experience when I was installing the driver's side yesterday, but I was fighting this lower one because when they bolt this support brace in the back, wherever this is fixed, it's going to stay there, and you don't have as much leverage compared to this upper one where it has a lot of slack, where you can, I was able to just spread it by hand on the passenger side. On the driver's side I had to use a pry bar, but there's a lot more space to spread out. Well, you only have about an inch or so of leverage to spread these two out. So what I had to do is I had to buy this bolt and nut. I'll insert the sizes here, and what I'm going to be doing with this is pushing out on these two nuts, and it's going to spread them out just enough, because right now the space between the slots, between the mounts, is 2 inches and 3/4. Well, this from end to end is 2 inches and 7/16. So it's tight enough to where you would just be fighting it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to overextend these mounts to maybe 3 inches, and then when this slides in, it'll get bolted down with the mounting hardware. Alright, now for the lower mount, we got to bring it forward about, let's say, 1/2 inch or so from the back side of the axle. You can see I have the hook above the mount, so it gives me space to lift up the mount when it's lined up. Goes right under the axle, in between the mount and that brace. And it comes straight up. It already has tension on it, onto this bumper bracket. We're going to be using the stock mount rear bolt, because since this is not going to be adjustable anymore, and so since that's not going to be adjustable anymore, since this doesn't have the same bracket around it, we're just going to go ahead and use a straight bolt instead of the eccentric bolt. And so I had the original strap in there, but I needed some more oomph to get the bottom out more. So I believe both these sets are from Harbor Freight if you want to pick them up. And I had to play tension on one, loosen it on the other, and vice versa. It's just a little game of tension to pull it on it and to see where I grabbed it. Right here, I grabbed it from the bottom of this knuckle. And there you go. Here's our arms. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side off camera just to get it done faster, and then we'll start torquing everything down. Previously, it used to just be 3 mounts, 2 in the front, 1 on the bottom. But with this new kit, you're gonna have 4 in the back and 2 in the front. And I'm gonna use a factory torque spec, which is 200 foot-pounds, and I'm gonna do it on all mounts. I have the jack holding the axle up. It's not loaded down on that axle jack stand. And I'm just off of the front mount, so the whole load is under the axle. And now we'll go ahead and torque it down. $50 foot-pounds for this transmission mounts. Last job is to torque down these jam nuts. Okay, everything is bolted back on. Now we'll go ahead and put the wheels on and air it up. See the travel. And there you go. The Flight Fabrications radius arms are installed. Hopefully this video helps y'all. Y'all have a good one.